The present perfect in German is a verb tense used for past actions that are continued in the present. It shows an action that began in the past but is directly related to the present, indicating that it's continuing with a change over time. In German, this tense is very important to know because it's highly used in daily conversations and can express multiple meanings in the past, using auxiliary verbs like sein and haben. Like in English, the German present perfect will consist of two parts: an auxiliary verb, sein or haben, in the present tense, and a past participle of the main verb, which I discussed in the previous video. Now here, it's important to make a distinction, because sein and haben are used for different verbs. Most German verbs use haben because the auxiliary verb acts like a basic addition. However, sein is used with verbs indicating movement or a change of state, like gehen, kommen, fahren, fliegen, laufen, sterben, aufstehen, and passieren. In the subject-verb agreement, only the auxiliary verb will be conjugated to fit the proper subject. The past participle of the main verb remains the same no matter what the subject is, so generally we use present tense conjugations of haben. Ich habe. Du hast. Sie, es hat. Wir haben. Ihr habt. Sie haben. These are the conjugations that we will use for the German present perfect, along with a past participle of a main verb. Let's use the verb lernen, which is a weak, regular verb. To put lernen in the present perfect, we begin with the subject, provide the auxiliary verb haben that will match the subject, and then use the past participle of lernen, which is gelernt. Ich habe gelernt. Du hast gelernt. Sie, es hat gelernt. Wir haben gelernt. Ihr habt gelernt. Sie haben gelernt. This is the pattern for the German present perfect. A subject, a conjugated auxiliary verb haben, and a past participle of the main verb. Now, let's use an irregular strong verb, like sehen, which will have a different past participle. Ich habe gesehen. Du hast gesehen. Sie, es hat gesehen. Wir haben gesehen. Ihr habt gesehen. Sie haben gesehen. A different verb is bringen, which is a mixed verb, having a different past participle. Ich habe gebracht. Du hast gebracht. Sie, es hat gebracht. Wir haben gebracht. Ihr habt gebracht. Sie haben gebracht. A different verb is verstehen, which has an inseparable prefix with a different past participle. Ich habe verstanden. Du hast verstanden. Sie, es hat verstanden. Wir haben verstanden. Ihr habt verstanden. Sie haben verstanden. A different verb is anfangen, which has a separable prefix, and verbs with separable prefixes will keep their prefix attached to the past participle. Ich habe angefangen. Du hast angefangen. Sie, es hat angefangen. Wir haben angefangen. Ihr habt angefangen. Sie haben angefangen. A different verb is sich freuen, which is a reflexive verb, and reflexive verbs in the present perfect will keep the reflexive pronoun after the auxiliary verb. Ich habe mich gefreut. Du hast dich gefreut. Sie, es hat sich gefreut. Wir haben uns gefreut. Ihr habt euch gefreut. Sie haben sich gefreut. This is how the present perfect is formed in German, but it's significant to understand when to use it. In my previous videos, I mentioned that the German perfect is more common in daily conversations, as opposed to the past simple, and now you can see why and how. The German present perfect is common in spoken German because it describes past actions that have a connection to the present, which is a more natural way to discuss everyday events. The present perfect focuses on the result and emphasizes the consequence of a past action, making it suitable for speech where speakers convey the current state of something that happened. Unlike the Präteritum, the present perfect highlights the connection between the past and the present, making it more suitable for discussing events that have relevance to the current situation. It has a natural flow in spoken German because it allows for a smoother flow of conversation, and it's preferred for conversational fluency. Still, we have to see how it's formed in all sentence structures. When saying a present perfect sentence with multiple elements, German follows the standard sentence pattern with the second principle that the conjugated verb must be in the second position. This means that in a present perfect sentence, the conjugated auxiliary verb, haben or sein, must be in the second position, while the past participle goes to the end. So, the pattern looks like this: a subject, an auxiliary verb, other elements, and a past participle. Some examples are: Ich habe ein Buch gelesen. Du hast eine E-Mail geschrieben. Hat einen Kaffee getrunken. Wir haben ein neues Auto gekauft. Habt einen Film gesehen. Sie haben das Problem gelöst. That's how the present perfect works in declarative, normal sentences, but we also have to see how it works in questions using the inverted sentence pattern. When asking yes or no questions in the present perfect, the position of the subject and the auxiliary verb is inverted. An auxiliary verb, a subject, other elements, and a past participle. To make learning simple, let's rephrase the previous examples. Habe ich ein Buch gelesen? Hast du eine E-Mail geschrieben? Hat einen Kaffee getrunken? Haben wir ein neues Auto gekauft? Habt ihr einen Film gesehen? Haben Sie das Problem gelöst? Furthermore, in W questions, the word order is the same as in the inverted sentence pattern, only with a question word in the beginning. Two examples can be: Was hast du gestern gemacht? Wann hast du das Auto gekauft? At last, in subordinate clauses, the auxiliary verb will go all the way to the end, like in the phrase Ich denke, dass das Buch gelesen hat. This is the concept of sentence structure and word order in the present perfect, but more concepts need to be known. Modal verbs in the present perfect work differently, where instead of using past participles, German usually has an auxiliary verb, a main verb in the infinitive form, and a modal verb also in the infinitive form. So, the pattern for modal verbs in the present perfect looks like this: a subject, an auxiliary verb, a main verb in the infinitive form, and a modal verb also in the infinitive form. Some examples are: Ich habe lernen müssen. Wir haben einkaufen müssen. Sie hat nicht kommen können. This concept is a bit hard to grasp, so practicing modal verbs in the present perfect is key. Moreover, in spoken German, some verbs are usually only used in the past simple, or the Präteritum, and such verbs are of being and having, like sein, haben, können, and müssen. When using these verbs in conversation, it's better to use the Präteritum, like Ich war müde. Ich war dort. Hatte Zeit. Hatte Glück. Sie konnte singen. Wir mussten gehen. While it is possible to use the perfect, it's far less common. At the beginning of the video, I mentioned that the present perfect can also use sein as the auxiliary verb, and now let's conclude with this concept. In special cases, verbs of movement and change of state must use sein as the auxiliary verb, like bleiben, passieren, and werden. Just like with the auxiliary verb haben, the pattern of using sein is no different. A subject, a conjugated auxiliary verb sein, other elements, and a past participle of the main verb. Some examples are: Ich bin zu Hause geblieben. Es ist nichts passiert. Ist Arzt geworden. In English, the sentences are expressed in the past simple, but in German, it's the present perfect, only with the verb sein as the auxiliary verb, so do not confuse the translation. However, the English translation isn't always the past simple. When accurately translated, it becomes the present perfect, like in the following sentences. Ich bin nach Deutschland gereist. Du bist froh nach Hause gekommen. Ist schnell gelaufen. Sie ist in die Stadt gefahren. Es ist groß geworden. Wir sind im Meer geschwommen. Ihr seid spät angekommen. Sie sind in Berlin gewesen. In the last sentence, the auxiliary verb sein is used for sein itself, having gewesen as the past participle of sein. In addition, when using sein, the same rules apply when used for yes or no questions, W questions, and subordinate clauses. As a final useful note, when talking with Austrians or Swiss Germans, you might hear some different usage of the present perfect. In Austria and Switzerland, verbs like sein and haben often use the tense in conversation, like saying, Ich bin in Wien gewesen. Ich habe Hunger gehabt. Even though Standard German would use Ich war in Wien and Ich hatte Hunger. To recap everything, remember that the perfect is used in spoken German while the Präteritum is used for writing. Understand the difference between haben and sein in verbs of movement and change of state. Word order also matters, along with separable verbs, modal verbs with infinitives, and verbs that are used in the Präteritum in speech. Overall, this is how the present perfect fully works in German.